Hello dear student, I'm your chemistry teacher, Miss Sunny.
Today we are going to crack the code on one of chemistry's classic puzzles, balancing redox reactions. We'll be using a couple of examples right from a concept assessment to build a step-by-step method that you can use every single time. So let's get right into it. You know, if you've ever stared at an unbalanced redox equation and just felt completely overwhelmed, you are not alone, trust me. They can look like a total jumble, right? With atoms and charges flying all over the place. But the good news is, there is a clear, methodical path right through all that chaos. And that's exactly what we're here to do. We're going to use the problems right from this page as our guide. By the end of this, I promise you'll have a reliable method to tackle these problems, and we're going to turn that confusion into confidence. Okay, first up, we're going to master the half-reaction method. This is such a powerful technique for taking a big, messy equation and breaking it down into smaller, much more manageable pieces. We'll use a problem from Concept Assessment 2.3 to walk through it together. So here's our starting point from Exercise 2.3, Part 3. We've got chlorine gas reacting with iodide ions to produce iodine and chloride ions. At first glance, it looks kind of simple, right? But are the atoms, and more importantly, the charges, really balanced? Let's dig in and find out for sure. The very first move is to split the team. Think of it like this. We're going to group the chlorine guys together and the iodine guys together. This gives us our two starting half reactions. This way, we can really focus on what's happening to one element at a time, which makes things so much easier. All right, step 2, we balance the atoms. So for the chlorine half reaction, we have 2 chlorines on the left, so we need 2 chloride ions on the right. Easy enough. For the iodine half reaction, we have 2 iodines on the right, so we need 2 iodide ions on the left. Simple as that. Remember, we're not worrying about oxygen or hydrogen yet, just the main elements. Now for the fun part, the electrons. In our chlorine reaction, the left side is neutral, but the right side has a total charge of -2. So to make them equal, we've got to add 2 electrons to the left side. For the iodine, the left side is -2 and the right is neutral, so we add 2 electrons to the right side. The key thing to remember is this: you always add electrons to the more positive side to balance things out. Now we need to check the absolute core principle of redox reactions. The electrons lost have to equal the electrons gained. Let's see. Our chlorine reaction gains 2 electrons, and our iodine reaction loses 2 electrons. Well, what do you know? They're already equal. That's fantastic news. It means we don't have to multiply the equations by anything. We got lucky on this one. Okay, time to put it all back together. We're just going to add up everything from the left sides of both half reactions, and then everything from the right sides. And look at that. We have 2 electrons on both the left and the right. Since they're on both sides, they just cancel out. And there it is, our final beautifully balanced equation. See? Not so bad? Great work. So, you've just successfully taken an equation apart and balanced it. Now, let's flip that around. We're going to take 2 separate half equations, this time from Exercise 2.4, and build them up into one complete redox reaction. Let's see how it's done. And here is our next puzzle, straight from Exercise 2.4, Problem 2. We're given the basic transformations. Nitrate becomes nitrogen monoxide, and bromide becomes bromine. Our job is to take these pieces, balance them properly, and then combine them into the final picture. So here they are, side by side. On the left, we've got the reduction half reaction. That's where the nitrate is going to gain some electrons. And on the right, the oxidation half reaction, where the bromide is going to lose electrons. But before we can slam them together, each one needs to be fully balanced. And, you guessed it, the number of electrons has to be the same. So we just apply the same rules we already learned. The bromide reaction is pretty straightforward. Balance the bromines, then add 2 electrons to balance the charge. The nitrate reaction is a classic acidic solution problem. First, we add water to balance the oxygens. Then we add H+ ions to balance the hydrogens we just added. And finally, we add 3 electrons to balance that overall charge. All right, now let's compare those electrons. The nitrate reaction has 3 electrons, but the bromide reaction only has 2. They don't match. So how do we fix that? We find the least common multiple, which is 6. That means we're going to multiply the entire nitrate reaction by 2 and the entire bromide reaction by 3. This is going to make sure that the electron transfer is perfectly balanced. Now that the electrons are equalized, we are ready for the big merge. We write out all the reactants from both of our newly adjusted equations on one side and all the products on the other. I know, it looks like a monster of an equation right now, but don't worry, we're about to simplify it. And here is the most satisfying part. We get to cancel out anything that's identical on both sides, which in this case is our 6 electrons. See ya! What's left over is the balanced net ionic equation. This is awesome because it only shows the things that are actually changing in the reaction. We've done it. We've successfully built the full reaction from its part. So, let's recap. We broke one equation down and we built another one up. And through it all, we used the exact same fundamental process. So let's boil all that down into a simple toolkit you can use for pretty much any redox problem that gets thrown your way. Here it is, your 5-step checklist for redox success. First, you separate into halves. Second, you balance the main atoms. Third, you balance the charge using those little electrons. Fourth, you make sure the electrons are equal in both halves, multiplying if you have to. And finally, you combine and simplify. This is your repeatable roadmap, your secret weapon to get the right answer every single time. So you now have the tool to decode any redox reaction. This process works whether the equation looks super simple or incredibly complex. So the only question left is, what's the most challenging equation you can balance with this method? Thanks for tuning in.
a couple of key players, and one main mission: to unmask the oxidizing agent. So let's solve this case together. So here's our case file, straight out of Concept Assessment 2.5. We've got copper oxide reacting with hydrogen gas, and that gives us pure copper and water. Our job is to figure out who's the oxidizing agent and who's the reducing agent in this whole scene. You know, just by looking at this equation, it's not super obvious who's doing what, right? They all just look like chemicals mixing together. But believe it or not, there's actually a secret code hidden in there. And once you learn how to read it, the roles of each of these players become perfectly clear. To crack this case, every good detective needs a special tool. In the world of chemistry, our tool is something called the oxidation number. It's the key, really. It unlocks the entire mystery of what's happening with all the electrons in this reaction. So what in the world is an oxidation number? Well, you can think of it as the apparent charge an element has when it's in a compound. It's kind of like a score in a game of electron tug of war. This little number tells us who's pulling harder, who's losing electrons, and who's just sharing nicely. Okay, so now that we have our clue-finding tool, the oxidation number, let's get a clear profile on our two main suspects, the oxidizing agent and the reducing agent. You've got to understand their motives if you're going to solve the puzzle. Now here's the key to their identities, right here. The oxidizing agent, think of it as an electron thief. It literally steals electrons from another substance, and that causes the other substance to be oxidized. Because it's gaining those negative electrons, its own oxidation number goes down. The reducing agent is the exact opposite. It's an electron donor. It gives electrons away, and its oxidation number goes up. Just remember, their names describe what they do to their partner in the reaction. And this is a super, super important rule. You got to remember this one. When we identify our agent, we don't just point to the one atom, like copper. Nope. We have to name the entire compound it was a part of. So for our answer, we're looking for either CuO or H2, not just Cu or H. Let's keep that in mind. All right, we have the puzzle, we have the clues, and we have the suspect profiles. It's officially time to apply what we know and finally solve this thing. Let's do it. We're going to follow a really simple 3-step process. First, we'll just go through the reaction and slap an oxidation number on every single atom, reactants and products. Then we'll compare the before and after to see whose numbers actually changed. And finally, we'll use those changes to deliver our verdict and name the agents. Easy enough? Okay, step 1, assigning the numbers. Let's start with CuO. We know oxygen is almost always a -2. And for the whole compound to be neutral, that means copper has to be a +2. Simple. Next, H2. Hydrogen here is a pure element, so its oxidation number is just 0. On the product side, we have pure copper, also an element, so it's also 0. And finally, in water, H2O, oxygen is -2 again, which means each of the two hydrogens has to be a +1 to balance it all out. And this table just lays it all out nice and clean. You can clearly see the before and after for every element. But notice something? Look at oxygen. Its number stays at -2 on both sides. It's kind of just a bystander in this chemical drama. Now for the fun part, let's track the changes. Copper's oxidation number drops from a +2 all the way down to 0. That decrease or reduction in number means it gained electrons, so we say it was reduced. Hydrogen, on the other hand, goes from 0 up to +1. That increase means it lost an electron, and we call that oxidation. Okay, this is the moment of truth. We have all the evidence we need. We know who is oxidized, we know who is reduced. Now all we have to do is connect that back to our definitions and officially name our agents. And here's our verdict. Since the copper in CuO was reduced, that means the entire CuO compound is the thing that caused hydrogen to be oxidized, and that makes CuO our oxidizing agent. And since the H2 molecule was oxidized, it's the one that caused copper oxide to be reduced, so H2 is our reducing agent. Case closed. So why does any of this matter outside of a textbook problem? Well, it's because these redox reactions, they are basically the engine that runs our entire world. I'm serious. These oxidation-reduction reactions, or redox for short, they are happening all around us, all the time. They are the reason the battery in your phone can generate electricity. They're also responsible for stuff like corrosion and rust. Understanding who the oxidizing and reducing agents are is literally the first step to controlling all these powerful reactions. So we've cracked the code for this one reaction. But the awesome part is, this method is the same for countless others. You now have the tools to look at a chemical reaction and see that invisible transfer of electrons happening just beneath the surface. The only question is, what are you going to investigate next?